Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to navigate Genius Studio. It may look a little different when you're seeing it, but it's going to function more or less the same way. The first thing we want to set up is probably SendFlow. We already preloaded a couple messages for you already. You can add more single deal templates, but essentially a single deal is the first deal, or essentially it's a deal sent to a buyer, and we categorize that as a single deal. A double deal is categorized as another deal that is sent to a buyer, but it's sent within a short time period. So this is to personalize those experiences when maybe, let's say, a buyer was sent another deal in the same day. Now, the message templates area is essentially an area where you can control how the personalized message looks like. So greeting is the first part of the message. Segue to deal is the second part of the same message. Generated statement is our AI generated statement that we generate based on their criteria and based on the deal. And ending is the end of that personalized message. You can edit the greeting, the segue to deal, and the ending for your message templates. You can add as many as you want. At the time of this recording, you can add as many as you want, but maybe now you might be limited to some. But you can edit the message templates here, and essentially we spin these templates in order to create the personalized message structure. And you can add double deal templates here if you would like. Expectation setting is essentially a second message that goes out that you can do to set better expectations with your buyers. You can remove or add templates here. We already have preloaded things for you. For SMS follow-ups, you can set your own SMS follow-ups, or you can actually, in the future, turn on AI personalized follow-ups. So these are the follow-ups that go out if a buyer doesn't answer, and then you can also set your email templates. If we go to Dispo Process Editor, this is where you can actually edit your Dispo process. So time of exclusivity means essentially if we send out the deal, this is how we're going to group the buyers. So we'll first send it to VIPs in this scenario, and they will have a total of 2 hours of essentially exclusivity before it's sent to the next group of buyers. And the next group of buyers is the level 5 vetted buyers, and they're going to get 1 hour of exclusivity for that deal, and then so on and so forth under it. We can set specific time windows for deals. We can set a wait time randomizer. Essentially what that does is, as you can see here, it's set to 20 seconds as default. But what wait time randomizer does is that it does a 15% wait time variance for each individual instance, for each individual buyer. So what that means is essentially it makes your automated deal sends or send flows less predictable on the buyer's end. So they won't know, like, okay, every time, like, it's usually always at this time, just so that this adds a bit more diversity to your Dispo processes. And this is where you can actually reorder steps as well. And you can set Genius follow-ups, and you can enable them or disable them as you want. You can set pricing thresholds. So as a default, you can always change this at checkout. Location exact matching essentially means I want to only send it to buyers that have this location listed in their buy box. Distance threshold essentially means we're looking at the distance between the property's coordinates and the middle of their location preference, and if that value is greater than the distance threshold, that buyer will not be included in the deal blast. Unmatched criteria threshold is essentially like if it's essentially your threshold for things that don't match. If you set this to all criteria must match, that means all criteria in the buyer has to match the deal in order to be sent to them. If you do higher, that will mean that you're now sending deals that are pretty off their criteria. So we recommend just one being off. It gives enough leeway, for your deal blast to get enough buyers. I would recommend to just keep all of these settings on default, but I would change these pricing thresholds per deal. You can also edit the double deal flow here and the time window in which we categorize double deals. And that is the Dispo process area. Now, checkout rules is essentially like what has to be filled in before we can begin send flow checkout. So let's say I want to make sure that the ARV value is in place before we can proceed checkout. I want to make sure buy EMD is in. I want to make sure the notes are in. I want to make sure title company is filled. I want to make sure in-house EMD is filled. And I can enable these. And essentially what this does is you cannot proceed to checkout unless these values are in. Now let's go to settings. It might look a little differently when you see it, but this is where you should add all your title companies that you work with in. Add them here, like this. Genius templates are essentially our way of, you can set your own deal text template. So if we go in here, add template and text template, I can set the name to, DG, LS, or whatever it is, your LLC, or it doesn't even have to be LLC. It could be your whatever name you want to do. Deal text SMS default template. And I could write my own sort of deal text template here. So I can put full address as the first thing. And I can do, let's just say, asking price I want to put in here, And I'm going to do asking price, and I'll put it here. And I'm not going to go super in-depth into this, but you can enable this, and then this will be the default template for all of your deal texts. You can still edit it, of course, but this is just going to be default. Save it, and that's how you save a deal text template, or really any template. In the future, you can do a lot more with these templates, but for now, they're mainly built for deal text. You can also create a template for a buy box. So if you have a recurring buy box that is always kind of is always used, you can set a default, or not default, but you can set up a template where, let's say, okay, usually buyers are buying in Tampa, and they usually avoid this zip code, and they're usually buying fix and flips, and they're usually buying single families. I'm gonna name this Tampa Fix and Flippers, and I can just go to my buyers. I can go to any buyer, and let's just say I'm talking to this buyer. I can actually automatically just use a template so that I don't have to fill it in. As you can see, it automatically populates. That is pretty much Genius Studio. It's very easy to navigate. This is called Buyer Genie. It's a tool that can analyze your entire buyers list in seconds. So you put in any lead, your asking price for a deal, and the strategy type. And if you do a search, it'll automatically analyze all your buyers to see how well they fit the criteria of the deal and give you a score. That is how to navigate Dispo Genius, or Genius Studio.